शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Let us now pray together. We offer our salutations to the all-loving being who endows all beings with consciousness. We meditate on the Lord, who is the origin of the universe. Lord, Thou abidest in all, Thou art all, Thou assumest all forms. Thou art the origin and goal of all. Thou art the self of all. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss. Salutations unto Thee. May the world be peaceful. May the wicked become gentle. May all creatures think of mutual welfare. May their minds be occupied with what is spiritual and abiding. May our hearts be immersed in selfless love for the Lord. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Dear friends, many of you must have received a special newsletter sent this morning informing of the passing away of our beloved John Chadbourne, who served Vedanta Society of Providence tirelessly for many decades. So, in remembering her services and her life, let us all observe a minute of silence. I request that all of you please stand up, and I request all those who are attending online also to do the same and think prayerfully about Joan for 1 minute. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. As a meeting, we shall pass the following resolution today. The meeting condoles the death of John Chadbourne, who served the Vedanta Society of Providence for several decades with exemplary dedication and untiring efforts. Through her devotion and loving service, she helped to spread the message of Vedanta to many people. The society joins all the family members and friends of dear Joan in praying for the smooth passage of her to Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother and Vivekananda, which was her cherished goal. Hari Om Tat Sat. Charlie. Om Atma me Shuddhyantam Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagam Swaha. May my physical being be purified. I am the unsullied, sinless, ever perfect self. Antaratma me shuddhyantam jyotiraham viraja vipapma bhuya sagam swaha. May my psychological self be purified. I am the pure consciousness of the nature of light, and may I realize that. Paramatma me shuddhyantam jyotiraham viraja vipapma bhuya sagam swaha. May my spiritual being be purified. I am the self-effulgent, divine, ever perfect, ever pure, divine being. Om, peace, peace, peace. Today's topic, I and you, is something that we all at every moment experience, and yet we know very little about it. There has been the philosophers for all historical times that we know have been thinking about it and putting their thoughts in words. Ancient and modern, Eastern and Western, both philosophers and religious authorities, theologians, they have discussed this topic to great extent. And although many theological and such topics are difficult for common people to comprehend, this is something that we encounter every moment of our life. I and you. It is, we see this I, and then we know I am, but we know I and what this I perceives. It is as it were, it is together. We get certified as it were by the existence of what we perceive, that I am, because who is seeing? I am, therefore, the seeing is happening, and the seeing is there because I am seeing it. So the two are as it were together. So we see this, that this I and the world, there is some, you see, it is all the very complex situation, that where the I ends and the you begins, the world or the you begins. The line is not very clear. In fact, our trying to clarify and draw a boundary always end in frustrating failures. And yet this question remains, what is this you? And we see that the attempts have been made, this like you. It is our experience, every single experience has these two constituents, that I and you. The same experience, you see, it has as it were, the two ends, the experiencer and experienced. Without experienced, what is the experiencer? Somebody becomes experiencer only because there is something to be experienced. Like somebody becomes a parent because there is somebody whose father or mother he or she is. So it is like that, a connected relationship, as it were, and where there is one, another is there. There is this concomitance, that I and you. So it is, but in case of parent and children, you can draw a line of demarcation, that this is the parent and this is the child. There isn't confusion about it. But with this I and world, it becomes a total confusion, where I end and the world begins. There is no possibility of telling it, in spite of the fact that we make such efforts. And this problem, as I had been telling, that in the philosophical world, even in the dawn of the Greek philosophy, you find that Socrates mentions that I know nothing. A very profound statement, actually sounds very simple, and we all can repeat it. Yes, I don't know anything, but I know that I don't know anything. So it is not just semantics, it is not play upon words, but it is the actuality in our experience, that the I is for sure that we know. But what does it know? Apart from that, then everything becomes very hazy. Everything is kind of confusion and contradictions. If you try to say that I know this, you immediately also know that I don't know this. I know and I don't know, they go together. It is therefore Socrates makes this statement, I know that I know nothing. Suppose you say, like our Sam sitting here would say, no Swami, I know this podium. Well, how much of the podium do you know? Very little, and that too only to some extent, not much. So if you see what you know of podium compared to what you don't know of podium is very little. So everything comes to us to back like this, that I know nothing. So this confusion keeps on building up. In last century, there were some very important efforts in the philosophical and theological world to solve this mystery, and very noteworthy, very nice, that there was a Jewish philosopher. His name was Martin Buber. He was Austrian, and then he was not really a religiously practicing Jew as such, but he was from the Jewish community. He actually disowned many of the Judaic doctrines, but he became a very well-known philosopher. He was an existentialist, but with a difference. We make these categories that this is an existentialist philosopher, this is a positivist, and so forth. But then there are all the, I am existentialist, but not such existentialist. So he dwelled deep into the nature of our experience, and he said, well, it is a book that he wrote that each do means the I and you, or I and thou. I, thou, this connection, this relation. Therefore, there is not the word and, but a hyphen, that it is connected. But he has made another distinction there, and which is very interesting. This is a relationship that we have, that I and you. And as we saw, very hazy relationship. We are to some extent, and very to some extent, I mean, sure that there is I, but we don't know what it is. And you, we really don't know, except that it, again, same, it is. Then there is the other idea, another relation that we have, where there is some semblance of definiteness. There is something definite there, and that he calls it. Means it includes he, she, all that. There is, there are boundaries to it. This you has no boundary, is all over. It has boundaries. This, it is confined in a space. It has characteristics. It has, say, describe somebody, some John Smith, skin of the color of the skin, sorry, color of the skin, the height, the weight, the place, the address, email address, phone number, all these specifications are there, identification is there, and so limitation is there. And we have a particularized relationship with that being. As it is not just limited to persons, things also, that when I say this is chair, it is having a shape, it has having a look, it is a particular thing in time, space and relationship, what is called time, space, causation. There it is all particularized, and this again is a shifting particularization. That is why time becomes time, and causality becomes an important part of it. That this, for example, you own a house, then you say my house, But now you later added some other room to that house. Now it is changed, now it is not actually the same house. Maybe you sold it to somebody, now it is no longer your house. So it is a dynamic it keeps on moving, changing. And so at a particular point, in a particular context, you can say, yes, there is a relation in my perception, I perceive it. So, very interesting idea. So, it is this kind of two types of relationships we have, I and you, and I and it. I-it relationship and I, thou or you relationship. So, thus we have these two worlds, a you world and the it world. You world, and Buber says that what then does one experience of you? Nothing at all. As soon as you say, I experience this, it becomes it. It is not you anymore. This is a point to ponder. When you specify something, it becomes it. It ceases to be you. So, nothing, for one does not experience it. What then does one know of the you? And here he takes a very big leap. The next essay, his book, that Each and Do is a poetry. This Buber, he was a wonderful poet, writer. He was nominated 10 times for Nobel Prize for literature and 7 times for Nobel Prize for Peace. I am not going into the depth of that, much discussion of it, but his book is a very fine poetry written in German. So, and there have been many translations of that. So, what then does one know of you? And here he takes a leap. Please listen. He says, only everything. Everything. We don't know anything. It is actually equivalent to say that we know everything. There is no particularized knowing there. It is generalized. For one no longer knows particulars. No particulars are known. So, even to say I don't know anything, and if you say no, I know everything, logically this cannot be challenged, because then you have to show you don't know this thing, you know that thing, and that assumes particularization. Where there is absence of particularization, you know nothing or you know everything. So, this is about the you world, that I-you connection. And then the it world or it, he, she world. Things are aggregate of qualities. We don't know the thing. This is very Kantian, like Kant described these things. When I say I know something, I don't know the thing. I know the qualities that appeal to my, say, sense organs and mind. It is, I know, say, this person. What do I know? As I mentioned, color of the skin, the height, the weight, date of birth, and whatever such things. So, I know an aggregate of qualities, not the thing as such. So, it is in a, and that too in a spatial, temporal, causal context. At this time, in this point, as seen by me. So, this context has to be there. So, it is always contextual, it does not have an absolute existence as such. This relationship I and it is like that. So, therefore, I am friend to somebody at some point and not all the time. It is something that is temporal, depends on and my condition, how I am connected to that, and those things all are shifting and changing. That is this, it is again measurability, things which are measurable, it gets defined by measurable things. It has to have a measure. So, and that is its conditionality. It is conditioned, you is unconditioned. So, this is how the kind of a big breakthrough was made in philosophical understanding, and a Protestant theologian who also was existentialist, a professor at Harvard University, his name Paul Tillich. And Paul Tillich gets this gist in one of his essays. His essay on Buber is very interesting, that he says there that Buber distinguishes the I-thou relationship from the I-it relationship. This distinction contains the main problem of existentialism, namely how to, and these are very interesting lines, please mark, how to be or to become an I and not an it. To be I and not it means not a heap of flesh and blood, not a body. A body is it, it is not I. So, to be I and not it, to be, how to be or to become a person and not a thing, how to be or become free and not determined. Here it is a master stroke indeed, that it, as we saw, is limited, and to I is free. That is the aspiration of everybody. I want to be free, I want liberation. Now, if we are tied to it, if we are identified with it, obviously, friends, there is no freedom at all. You are limited. You are it, you are a thing, and thus you are limited by infinitely many other things. Thus, the urge, the aspiration is to become I, the being, the person, the being, that is important. Tillich, as a theologian, mentioned this very important, very much like Vedanta, this idea that God is pure being, Sat, pure being. It is the question whether God is, does not exist as such according to him, because God is existence. So, whether there is a controlling God that controls all existence, it is, yes, God is controller of all existence only in the sense that God is existence. So, in that sense alone that statement is acceptable. Otherwise, you just throw the God out if you assume an extra cosmic being who and there is another being. So, you have two different beings and thus they limit each other. The two things means one has a boundary and another has a boundary. Charlie is there, he has a boundary there. Yogatmananda is a different person, so another boundary there. So, if God is one existence and world is another existence, then there are two existences. So, therefore, this Paul Tillich says, no, God is being. Sometimes he goes to one step just to accommodate other theologians that God is the ground of dwelling. It is our being. So, this is how this problem has been approached about the I and you, and it will be interesting to do this exercise whenever there is an impulse of I. Let us have this analysis done so far in our mind. I means it is you, the infinite, and the it. I-it relationship is particular, conditioned by time, space, causation. There are many, many its. So, it is a limited relationship. I-you is a constant relationship and its strength is that it is not determined. It is indeterminate is infinite, determinate is finite. So, therefore, this I and you relationship is very different from I-it relationship. Now, Vedanta includes all this it into you that is perceived and looks at this problem more deeply. This problem is discussed so thoroughly and yet in a very few brief sentences by Shankaracharya. It is one of the, I would say, the best presentation and resolution of this problem, that I and you, that is Shankaracharya's introductory commentary on Brahma Sutra. Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra, the aphorisms on Vedanta, a book of great authority, and Shankaracharya wrote a detailed commentary on that, but initially he has written an introductory commentary for that, and that introductory commentary brings up this important question, that the one and that which is perceived, I and you, how they are connected. And he again agrees with our experience that in each of our experience these two constituents are inseparably mixed. You cannot separate them. They are part of our experience, and yet why it is intriguing is because these two constituents are not complementary but contradictory. If they are complementing each other, one can understand that they are together, but they are conflicting. It is I, the knower, and you, the known. It becomes so confusing that what is this I, the knower, Is this body I? Just think. No, it is known. It is known, you know the body. It is, in the medical schools, it is cut open and dissected part by part. It is not you, it is something that you know. Get it? Yeah, this is, so you are not this body. And yet we call this body as I. I went to Vedanta Society to listen to the Sunday service talk. Yes, what went there? The body went. Did you go? Well, that is kind of a slippery surface. Yeah. So, I means body? No, I am not body. And yet I identify with it. I identify with so many other things also. Sometimes it is for identification and yet separation we use the term my. But it is so much similar to I that it is because I has been somehow put in it. And so it is our interests are all invested in it. Like my car. One of our friends has a very old car, and then, but it is takes good care of it. Tries to repair it every now and then, and doesn't want to let it go. If something happens to that car, it is happening to him. He won't tolerate. I remember one incident. I was new in this country then, and then somebody was giving me a ride to go somewhere. As soon as I was getting into that car, the car was old and had the things where the upholstery was not right, paint was here and there gone. But he immediately warned me, not a single word against this old beauty will be tolerated. It will be considered a big insult. So it is, because although it is a thing, yet I is tied to it. Had it been somebody else's car, oh, what a useless car that. But no, my is always good, you see. So it is a conflict where this I is and where not I is. It is a big mix-up, what Shankaracharya calls in this commentary as adhyasa. Therefore, this short commentary, very short commentary, and yet one likes to study it again and again, meditate on it again and again. This is called the superimposition commentary, adhyasa bhashya. And here he says, I and you, experience is the result of superimposition. The non-dual entity alone appears in the two forms alternately, as it were. But since Shankaracharya is not merely an intellectual philosopher, at the end of this part he goes beyond that this superimposition is the cause of all bondage and misery that everyone is going through. It is therefore being the cause of all problems for us. It is the job of Vedanta to remove this superimposition. Tasya asya anartha hetoho prahanaya sarve vedaha arabhyante. All the Vedas, they begin with this purpose in mind, to get rid of this superimposition which has become the one single cause of our bondage and suffering. And so we have to get rid of this. And then, well, you have achieved your goal. You are free, you are blessed, you are existence itself, you are being. So you are no more a thing, you are being. So for that purpose, this is being described. This you and I, this puzzle becomes completely dissolved there. Shankaracharya himself, in another composition, which is a poetry, a very famous hymn, Dakshinamurti Stotram, brings this truth to us in a very poetic way. That hymn is Dakshinamurti Stotra. So he says there that what is called you, this Vishwa, that which is seen, is really the self-reflected. It is I that gets reflected and gets called you. Appears to be outside, actually though within. Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nijantargatam Pashyannatmani mayaya bahirivot bhutam yatha nidraya. That look, like in a mirror, you see a scene, something is seen in the mirror, but it is only a reflection, it is not there. So this world is seen as a reflection of the self in this mirror of ignorance. It is seen as it were it is outside. You are actually, it is being perceived inside, but as if it is outside. That is how it is being perceived. All is the self, but is as it were taken out and then thought of as external, outside, and being perceived there. And to illustrate, he says, Yatha Nidraya, like what happens when you are seeing a dream. A very illustrative, instructive analogy that is invoked by Vedanta many times, that do we not see dream? Of course, everybody sees dream. I am not talking about daydreaming here. It is the dream. When you sleep, you are not aware about your waking state at all. And what do you see? So many wonderful things. You see yourself also there. I in the dream is riding on the unicorn of the dream. It is all are, and they are all outside. The dreaming eye sees that the unicorn is outside, and let me ride this unicorn. That is how the dreaming, the eye in the dream is thinking that, where is all this? Although it is seen as outside, all was inside. All was within the mind there itself. Nothing outside was there. So this universe too. Just as in the dream you have some pleasant experiences, some unpleasant experiences. Here also the same. It is in dream you establish some relationships with people Yeah, this is in dream. You have a dream mother, a dream father, a dream spouse, a dream child. Well, similarly in this so-called waking state, and we have all these relations, my so and so, my so and so, and those relations last as long as the dream lasts. These relations also last only as long as this dream lasts. Sri Ramakrishna used to tell that story, that it is a man was asleep, his son was very sick, and while nursing the son, he fell asleep. And then in the meantime, the sick son died, and the mother of that son, his wife, he started crying aloud. Naturally, son passed away, only son, and this man also woke up, and there was no tear in his eyes. The wife said, "What? Our son passed away and you are not feeling anything about that?" He said, "Well, dear, listen, when you were crying woke me up. Actually, I was dreaming. Then I had become a king, and I had 7 sons. And when that dream broke, all my 7 sons and the kingdom all went away. I am now confused whether I should be weeping for those 7 sons or this one son." Confusion is there. It is like that it appears to be outside. Let us remember, it is all in us. The self alone is appearing as outside. There are no two. Vedanta takes this very firm stand that neha nanasti kinchana, as Kathopanishad says, there are no two. There is only the one without second. This is the truth. That which you see in the Dakshinamurti hymn, there is another very beautiful stanza that how it happens. Well, it says, "Nana chidra ghatodara sthita mahadeepa prabhabhaswaram." Imagine that there is an earthen pitcher and a light is kept inside the pitcher. There are holes in that pitcher. Now the light is coming out of those holes. And those who are not aware of the light inside the pitcher think that these are all the lights of these holes. The holes are not actually generating any light. Holes represent our sense organs. By sense organs we see this universe. Now it is all really the light of the self going out and appearing as so many things. As is the hole, so will be the light going out from it. So when that light of the soul, light of the self goes out through this hole called eyes, it assumes form, color, shape, size and all that. When that very light goes through the ear, the organ of hearing, that becomes so many sounds. Similarly with other senses, as it you see goes through the tactone organ, then you have so many different touches, soft, hard, hot, cold and so forth. So when it goes out through the sense of smell, you have all millions of different smells. So also with the organ of taste. And what is there apart from these in this what we call world? Only these things. It is the light of the self just going out through these sense organs. It is within, but we see it as if outside. When we see the truth, this division vanishes, inside and outside division vanishes. I and you, this division vanishes. Subject, object, division vanishes. And now there is no riddle to solve, no puzzle to give an answer to. It is now. There is the word now also is, you have to say eternal now. There is no change due to time. And that is the state that the sages actually experience. That is what is a purified spiritual experience. Purified in the sense all confusion is taken out of it. When you say when is the understanding pure, when the confusion is thrown out. Otherwise it is all confused understanding. We don't know what is what. We just talk as if we know, but keep on contradicting ourselves. But when this confusion is gone, then we realize this truth. This becomes matter of direct experience, and thus the puzzle is over. Sri Ramakrishna used to give this example, a very telling example of a pitcher filled. This again example occurs in some Upanishads. A pitcher dipped in water. Imagine a limitless expanse of water, above and below, before and behind, right and left, everywhere there is water. In that water is placed a jar filled with water. Now, this jar is this ego. This jar is the ego. It's dark, it always, therefore makes a jarring note. Being a jar of ego creates this jarring note in our life. It is this jar. Inside the same, outside the same, only this shape. There is water inside the jar, water outside, but the jar is still there. The I, the ego is that jar. So, therefore, the spirituality, religion, Vedanta is all centered on breaking this jar, removal of ego. Sri Ramakrishna is therefore called I specialist. I, not the EYEI, but the I specialist. Getting rid of this ego problem, and thus we become bliss. We don't have to then seek happiness. Now, what a great thing you can see, that otherwise we are beggars of pleasures. We keep on, begging happiness, that, oh, money, give me a little happiness. Oh, house, give me a little happiness. Oh, my university, give me a little happiness. Oh, man, give me some happiness. Oh, woman, give me some happiness. Just keep on begging. It is, and what do beggars get? Only the crumbs thrown, you say. It is, we don't therefore get anything. But when we see that I am happiness, one doesn't need now to ask for happiness. I am that. The water doesn't need to get wet, you say. Where the water can get wet? Well, it is wetness. So, similarly, we become that. we that are already that we realize this truth, and thus the life becomes fulfilled. So this is how we go beyond this riddle of I and you. We see the same I that is you. It is approached in two ways in Vedanta. Start from you, and then you see that it is same as I. Or start from I and see that I expands to include the you. It is the main thing is to break this fictitious wall between them. It is fictitious, we have seen it right in the beginning. It is not a real wall, not like a huge wall of China, or the wall between East Germany and West Germany that came tumbling down, not a wall that needs to be actually broken physically. It is a non-existent wall. Which wall is easy to break, Bianca? Existing wall or non-existing wall? Non-existing wall is easy to break because there is nothing to break, but still it is the most difficult wall to break, because we imagine that it is there, and since it is not there we cannot break. We keep on making attempt again and again. It is impossible, to kill a shadow enemy, because it is shadow, you cannot really kill it. So this wall becomes most difficult to break. This wall of ego, it doesn't exist and yet is tormenting us a lot. And so to break this, we have this I specialist, Sri Ramakrishna. I told you that, but it doesn't lose anything in repetition, that it is an eye doctor gives you eye drops. This eye doctor, Sri Ramakrishna, tells not eye drop but drop eye. It is drop eye. How to drop eye? He shows that. So friends, let us meditate on this, and then in case if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Yes, please. Hi, John.
Yeah, you have a question. I have a question.
Okay, I have a question. Yeah, very good question. Excellent, I have a question.
Okay. I'm thinking that the only one that could break my jaw is me, or is I. I can't break anybody else's jaw to have them understand that you are I also.
Yeah,
I could probably plant seeds.
It is a very good question. I got your question, dear. That maybe my job could be to break this I, this jar, but what about that jar? What about that jar? What about that jar? What about the President of United States jar? All these jars, they are there. What do I do about those jars? If one jar is broken, all the jars get broken for you. Just break this jar. When I break this jar, automatically all other jars get broken too. It is one may ask question, why then other jars will get broken? I am seeing those other jars because of this ego. When this is broken, those other egos also for me go away. Any other question? That Abhishek has a question.
Maharaj, why should why should I worship I? Because so this is a recursive thing happening. I mean, you're saying to even to realize that I understood that if my jar is broken, at the same time others will break because they do not exist. So, but in order to get that realization, praying is one of the routes, as far as I understood. And you always say God. You say a lot of the times God. When you say God, I feel disconnected with I or the self or the witness. So why you do not say let's pray to the witness instead? And again, it will be like I am praying to myself. Why is it like that?
Well, there is a saying, that a rose is as fragrant with any other name. So if you prefer the name witness, you can use that, but see, it has to be witness. What does it mean by witness? Watching everything, being conscious of everything, not participating in anything. So that is a wonderful idea, that all that happens is under the watchful eye of the witness. If you don't like the word God, under the watchful eye of God, yes, you can have the watchful eye of the witness. It is just another name that you are using, but what sounds better, tell me, the psychological aspect comes here. Let us pray to God sounds better, or let us pray to witness sounds better. Already I see people smiling. Let us pray to witness doesn't sound that effective psychologically. It is effective in thinking, no doubt, but when it comes to the actual prayer, let me pray to witness. It is there actually in some texts. You see this part, this witness. The God is called witness. That it is like in this Dakshinamurti stotra, this word comes, Yat Sakshi Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanameva Dvayam, that at that hour this you witness this all this confusion going away. So the confusion was also being witnessed, and then non-confusion now is also witnessed. So it means it is actually experienced. And that part is to be stressed, that it is a matter of direct perception. Yeah. Any question there?
Yes, Maharaj, there is one question. It is a two-part question from Shubha. Pranam Swamiji. So
Pranam.
does, in quotes, it, so does it is in transactional world? And second part.
The first question, please repeat better.
Yeah. So does it is in transactional world?
Okay, second part.
And also, wouldn't when become known, you will become or falls under category of it?
Yes, a very good idea, It is transactional. We saw that it is only a contextual presence. That means shape, qualities, and my connection with it, and so forth. There is the time, space, causation. That is a transactional because it keeps on shifting and changing. Like the money in our pocket, it comes, then when it is sitting in, say, pocket, it is actually not money. Its money value comes only when you go to buy something, and then it goes. Transaction happens. That is why it is called transaction. That something is given, something comes. So this it is transactional. And when you know the it, that knower of that it is also therefore transactional knower. That is not true I. Very correct, yeah. It is tied to it, and so it is. It has those same properties of it. It also is transactional. Like I am seeing somebody, that somebody is shifting, changing, my understanding also, this I who is knowing, that understanding is also shifting and changing. So this is also, both are therefore at the same level. Yeah. So let us, next Sunday, Chester Bonsek will be giving that lecture. Many ask, Swami, are you going somewhere? No, I am not going somewhere, but I should give you some relief, listening to the same fellow all the time. So it is the topic of Chet's lecture is Beautiful Far Away. And other programs during the week will go on as usual. Tuesday, Friday lectures at 7:30 p.m. And Tuesday the topic is Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play. Fridays it is stories from Srimad Bhagavatam. The morning and evening meditations, prayers, all that will go on as usual. So with that, let me conclude with the closing prayers. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So friends, afterwards in the evening, I will send the resolution that we passed in the beginning of the meeting to John's daughters.
Stainless Lord, as Auspicious and blessed, graciousness sublime, all noble ends you give to us, granting us refuge, all seeing glory. O Mother Divine, our love to you. Creation, preservation, dissolution are your powers, eternal one. Nature's real basis, nature's essence. O Mother Divine, our love to you. We come seeking refuge from anguish. Be our Savior through your deep concern. All our suffering remove, Goddess. O Mother Divine, our love to you. Victory, O Mother Divine, our love to you. Blessed Mother Divine, our love to you. Blessed Mother Divine, our love to you. Blessed Mother Divine, our love to you. जय श्री राम कृष्ण देव की जय। जय